Winning international backing for a global minimum tax rate of at least 15%. Officials from 130 countries meeting virtually yesterday, agreeing to a wider overhaul of rules for taxing international companies. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen calling it a historic day for economic diplomacy. Joining me now, National Taxpayers Union Executive Vice President Brandon Arnold. Brandon, what do you make of this agreement? Because I originally described it as Biden and company trying to railroad these other companies to help him pass through a corporate tax increase, countries to help pass a corporate tax increase here in the United States.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate description, to be honest with you. And I don't know why Yellen is celebrating so much. I don't know why Biden is so happy about this agreement, because ultimately it will hurt U.S. competitiveness. Even if it's taken on its face, when you pair it with Biden's 28% corporate tax rate and his proposed doubling of foreign profits that are earned overseas, you're going to see a bigger gap between where the United States is tax-wise and where the rest of the developed world is. So that gap that currently exists gets larger, which means American businesses are put at a competitive disadvantage. That's bad for innovation. It's bad for job creation. It's bad for this economy at large. It's a real problem.
Something that Larry Kudlow has talked about a great deal. Why in the world would Ireland, with this incredibly competitive tax rate of 12.5%, sign on to this, or Hungary?
Right. And neither of those countries is very important. Neither of those countries were part of this 130-member agreement because they have no incentive to do so. They have lowered their taxes over the past several years. It's been smart. It's attracted a lot of capital, a lot of business activity to those countries. So why would they turn around and raise their taxes? Odds are they won't. And if those countries hold out, that means Europe, which requires unanimity to be part of this deal, can't be part of the deal. So what we're going to see is the United States takes action. We're going to raise our taxes. Other countries aren't going to play ball. Even the UK is saying they want special carve-outs and exceptions for their financial services sector. China's a whole other ball of wax there altogether. We know that they're going to want a massive carve-outs. They've already said so for their domestic technology industry, their manufacturing sector. So this thing turns quickly into a whole piece of Swiss cheese that doesn't really have any effectiveness, except on American companies, of course.
So it's a lot of talk with no walk, to follow up, so to speak.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's easy to sit down with finance ministers from other countries. It's easy to go to Venice and Brussels and agree to these things. But when the rubber hits the road, there's going to be all sorts of changes that are made within these individual countries. Even countries in the developing world, African countries have said, we don't want to play ball. We know if we want to get our economy up to first world status, we need low tax rates to attract businesses. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot more pushback when the rubber hits the road. And I don't think we're going to see broad implementation of this plan, except maybe in the United States.
Yeah, I suppose if your job is to bounce from boondoggle to boondoggle, you have to act like you're doing something, and this kind of speaks to that. Republican senators, meantime, rallying against one of the main ways President Biden plans to pay for his spending package, a $40 billion infusion to help the IRS collect $100 billion more in taxes. Your reaction to this potential weaponization of the IRS, Brandon?
Yeah, this is tremendously concerning. Listen, we just saw the leak of private information, private tax data from billionaires. A few years before that, we saw the politicization of the treatment of nonprofit groups, targeting conservative groups. And that's just the start of the problem there. The IRS is an absolute mess of an agency. You know, just in 2019, if you call the IRS, you're put on hold for an average of about 5 minutes. Now, if you have a problem, you call the IRS, you get put on hold for 20 minutes. It's a mess. They need to fix what's going on at the IRS before they can even talk about expanding its size, about expanding its scope of powers. What they're talking about doing, the Biden proposal would hand over new snooping powers, requiring banks to report on what everyday Americans, law-abiding Americans, are doing with their money. This is egregious. It should be rejected out of hand.
Brandon, thank you so much for being here this morning. Always.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Brandon Arnold. Coming up.